I'm excited about today. I feel like I'm always getting bits and pieces and bites from you. And I'm like, I can't wait to get her on a full fireside chat, because you have the gems, it's just golden. And I'm going to let you know, I'm going to start working with you at some point so I can get my storytelling together and I feel like I stopped telling my story for a while. Like I felt like everybody knows everything there is to know about me. And so that's why my social media is a little dry. So I just need help there trying to craft my message and figure out what else people want to know.
But the thing is, like, every single day you're going to have new attention. I've been telling my story for 10 years. You know what I mean? So it's like, you can penetrate the same story from different angles. It's just about the structure, right? Because there's always, when you told me we were gonna have this chat, I put pen to paper. I'm like, okay, let me go back to the beginning and like really think about some of the things maybe I haven't talked about. So I'm looking forward to like diving into that. There's always something that you have not shared, always.
That is true, because even when we were on text, remember, and I told you something, I'm like, wait a minute, I've never shared the whole New York story and the suitcases. Then the thing with Vibe, when I had revealed that they tried to buy, I had never said that ever before.
And I think it's important to share that transparency and vulnerability and those moments, because those are the moments that people can relate to. You know what I mean? Sure. So I think it's, like, you know, we see a lot of cyber glitter, but it's really refreshing when you can, honestly, the nuggets that you shared around some of your challenges, I think a lot of people have a lot more respect for you, you know, because of what you've been through.
Man, today I'm super excited. As you can see, she's ready for the gym. She just got on here and she's ready to drop them. But I wanted to properly, I'm not going to do much introducing because I feel like your elevator pitch is so game tight. I've listened to quite a few of your podcast interviews. I'm like, she got her pitch down in the way she tells her journey and her story. But so yeah, I'm going to actually let you introduce yourself. How you do it?
Well, you know what? Whenever people ask me to introduce myself, I always start off by saying I'm a millennial woman who fought for her dreams and won, right? That's really important to me. I think, like, much like I mentioned in our previous chat, like, society is so tied to titles, CEO and entrepreneur, but, you know, we have to really tap into who we are beyond them, right? I think when we think about purpose, I think, you know, so many people tie a purpose to a title or a final destination when your purpose is really something that you exhibit every single day, right? And so looking at me, you might assume my purpose is writing or speaking, right? That's not my purpose. I use those as vessels, right? My purpose is to help people see beyond the limits of their circumstances. And anything I do, anything I say, anything I touch, I make sure that that is in alignment, which I think is very, very important. The elevator pitch. So my name is Pauleanna Reid, and I am a journalist and celebrity ghostwriter. I help the leaders and doers who are shaping the future turn their personal stories into brand assets. Kind of like Judy Smith meets Cardi B.
Yes. Listen to that. Like, I mean, you got me about to get my tagline together. I have to, this wasn't, you know, on my original thing to ask you, but I'm very curious. Did you ever have a time where you felt like you were tied to a title and that title got taken away from you?
I think in the early stages of my career, when you're watching other people, you're like, I want to be like her someday, or I want to be a boss. Like, girl boss is like the most common, you know, phrase that's thrown around. But honestly, like, I think that there's a difference between, you know, a title and your life assignment. And like, for me, like, I no longer do this shit for popularity. You know what I mean? It's really important that I'm leading with purpose, because even if I was not known, even if I didn't get paid, this is still work I would be doing. And even when I was broke, this is still work that I was doing. I was volunteering. You know, my father's a former pastor. Like, I come from a family of givers. I come from a family of community activists. I come from a family of public speakers. So like, I always knew it was in me. It was just a matter of when I was going to tap into that.
Your journey to entrepreneurship. Let's talk about that for a minute. I'm curious, because I know what you do now, but what was your last 9 to 5?
So my last 9 to 5 was, are you familiar with Lord & Taylor?
Yes.
Right. So the sister company, so I don't know if I told everyone this, but I'm in Toronto, born and raised in Toronto, Canada.
Oh,
But
yeah, she's in Toronto, guys.
but I spend a lot of my time in New York and LA. So the sister company over in Canada is called Hudson's Bay Company. And so I was the executive assistant to the president and several C-suite executives for the last 4 years at that company. But for the last 10, I've been an executive assistant. And I have to tell you, you know, when people really ask me what was the course that I took when I dropped out of college. And I was taking an office administration course, and I landed there because my parents, my counselors, people around me were like, oh, this is a safe route. You're young, you're Black, you know, take a cubicle job and you'll be good. You know, I wasn't really raised to color outside the lines. And when I dropped out, because I was in the pits of depression, and we'll get into that. But when I dropped out and I walked away, I didn't really see the value in what I was doing, because I just thought, like, I'm just going to be someone's assistant. Like, what is that? You know, it wasn't until later on in my career, as I ascended, I realized that it's actually a key component to the entire organization. To be an executive assistant to the president or a C-suite executive, you have a bird's eye view on everything. And so really and that's why I want people who have a 9-to-5, like, you can't complain about it. Every time you say, I can't, I won't, I don't want to, I'm tired, you're telling God that you are not ready to be elevated to the next level. You're telling yourself that you don't have what it takes to be elevated to the next level. So I know it sucks. I've cried on many bathroom floors, right? I've hated my bosses. I've always, you know, sometimes you question, like, what the hell is happening? Because 9-to-5s are tough sometimes. If you don't have a good environment, a supportive environment, if you don't feel like you're elevating, it seems like the pits of hell, honestly. But you have to look at it as if you're going to business school every day. You know what I mean? That's really, like, that's the foundation to, like, where you're going to be.
I tell people the best bosses used to be assistants, or at least executive assistants, because of what you just said.
Yeah.
Everything about the company and how it's run.
Yeah. I mean, I was I caught on very quick as to, like, the key moves that I had to do in order to really build my business acumen, right? So I would sit in 3-hour strategy meetings, even though I didn't have to, just so I can hear how they processed, how they were critically thinking and how they're processing and solving problems. I would interview and sit down with all of the department heads, sales, marketing, finance, HR, and I would just sit down with them over a cup of coffee in the cafeteria and just chop it up. And old people love to talk about themselves, right? So, like, you sit down with them and they love it, right? And so one thing I want to also communicate, because people may be struggling with, you know, how do I balance both? And so one thing that was really important to me is I was always going to be honest with the hustles that I had outside of my 9-to-5. Right? Some people, like, hide that from their boss and, like, you don't want to reveal too much. I actually used it to my advantage. And in my interview process, remember, it's a two-way street, right? So my interview process was really important for me to also see if, you know, if this was going to be a good fit. If they did not respect that I had a life outside of a 9-to-5, then this wasn't going to work for me. The other thing that's important is evaluating what you want out of a role. For me, I knew that I was going to transition to full-time entrepreneurship at some point. So many of my roles I actually entered at my salary cap, right? Money was not the driving factor to the roles. I feel like people are so money hungry. I wanted a millennial driven environment, right? So I can be around other innovators. I wanted bosses who would be like mentors, who could teach me things, right? I think it's, you know, I would ask my bosses to teach me how to read the financial reports. I would ask my bosses to teach me how to do pitch decks and how, you know, what are their keys to confidence, right? I wanted unlimited, I wanted vacation. So some, you know, you have some corporate arenas that are 2 weeks vacation. I had the last 4 years, I had, and for everybody, I don't know if anyone knows, but I actually quit my 9-to-5 in January 2019. So my last job, we had unlimited vacation.
Y'all, she lives in Canada. So let me come on now. But anyway.
You know what I mean? So, but what I'm saying is, like, you really have to, you know, if your job does not allow you to kind of flex a little bit, maybe you want to consider changing your environment. Obviously, we're in COVID, so we're all working from home. But pre-pandemic, I was really, really careful what role and what organization I would work for, because I knew that I really needed to work on my business simultaneously. So there was no vacations. All my vacation time went to business trips. You know what I mean? Like my lunch hour went to practicing speeches for talks. You know what I mean? Like, so, you know, and also too, like, you know, all these new open concept offices, nah, like I needed a cubicle so I could run my business and nobody would, you know, be looking over my shoulder.
So I do have a question for people who are like assistants right now, or they're at a, not at the level they want to be in their company, but they want to move up eventually, especially now that this seems like to be the new norm for a while with us working from home.
Right.
What are extra things they can do now that they're not in the office to make sure they're being seen and that they can work up? Because like you said, you were asking to sit in on meetings, and how can you teach me how to read the financial reports? What can they do since they're working from home to kind of move up or take the extra initiative?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I really think that right now, I mean, I assume that most of the managers or the senior managers, you know, they're hanging on to their jobs a lot longer. So I assume that many of your bosses may be older. They will need assistance in some capacity navigating this digital environment. Ask people what they need help with. I mean, as an executive assistant, it was really my job to anticipate needs as well. And because I worked so closely to my superiors, I was able to really see what they needed. But depending on where you fall in the company, that may not be obvious to you. So don't be afraid to ask and say, don't be afraid that it may come across as if you have nothing to do. You can simply say that, I explain what you're working on, but say, I do have the capacity. If you do need assistance, please let me know, what you need help with, because honestly, nobody could have prepared for this time. So I think everyone's going to need help on some level, right? And it doesn't even necessarily have to be your superior. Maybe you can just ask a coworker, right? Yeah. Someone horizontally if they need assistance, and just be open and willing to raise your hand.
Yeah, I want to say this real quick because I started in radio and I was an intern working for free. And I looked around one day and it was like 10 of us that came in at one time. So I was like, when a position opened, there's 10 of us, then there's assistants that are over us. I'm going to be the last down the line to get this job. So what I started doing was I learned every position in that station, from the boards to producing. Then I started driving an hour to the sales meetings. Then I started working in promotions.
Yeah.
A position came up for promotions coordinator. And guess who got the job? Everybody.
Yeah, and building relationships.
Yes.
Building relationships with the decision makers. I was buddy with HR. You know what I mean? Like I had left the company 3 times and came back. You know what I mean? Like that's another story, but you know what I mean? Like I made sure that like the people who made decisions, they knew who I was. They saw me. I made sure I was present.
Yeah. So when did you know it was time for you to, I'm 100% confident that I can do my side hustle now full time?
Oh man, it took a long time. So my first side hustle I got as a freelance journalist back in 2010, 2011. And for me, like throughout the years, I had to practice time management. You know what I mean? I had to just practice juggling so much. I realized in 2018, I surpassed 100K. I made 147K from my side hustle.
Wow.
And my corporate salary was 65K. Wow. So I decided to make the transition when 2 things were really important to me. Number 1, I wanted to pay down my debt as much as possible. And number 2, I made sure that I had a proven track record of sales for at least a year. Like that was, for me, it was, you hear some entrepreneurs, they just quit with no plan. I wanted a plan. That was really important to me. Other things that I made sure that was important to me was I hired smart and I hired fast. So like while I was at work, like operations in my company did not halt. I still had writers, graphic designers, videographers working on things. So I had the project still going and deliverables were still met.
What was some of your most important hires in the beginning stages of your business?
Executive assistant. I hired my own assistant to help with admin because I feel like as a CEO, the LinkedIn CEO, Jeff Weiner, he told me, not me, but I watched in a talk that the CEO is responsible for growing and developing the business and the team's job is to maintain it. So I knew that I needed to take certain things off I didn't want to spend all my time in admin. A videographer to help with video content, because I'm a big believer that, you know, you should be documenting everything. If not with a videographer, just like document your processes, everything's content. So it was really important. A graphic designer. And then I had a few writers. Some people may be wondering, like, how did you even pay them? Honestly,
yeah, I think when you were talking about the executive assistant, I know some of these people are contract. Like I
of course,
a ton of contractors versus them being on my salary. Like, who was your first salaried employee? Would you say it was the executive assistant?
Yeah, she's been with me for 4 years.
Okay, and she's still with you? That's a lot.
Oh yeah, she's still with me.
A lot.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's like, what you have to ask yourself, what are you willing to sacrifice? You know what I mean? Like, I would walk, honestly, like I took a lot of my corporate paycheck and I would pay that into their pay. And then also too, like any money I made from the business, it just went back into the business. Right. And then the other thing, I think as a founder, it's your responsibility to paint the vision. Right. So even when I paid them scraps, because that's all I could really afford, they knew where the train was going. So they knew where I was headed. And they're like, either we get on now because there may not be an opportunity later, right? Because I had documenting everything on social, my blog, etc. They knew my level of consistency and how hard I was working. So they're like, yeah, like we'll ride it out with you. And now we're in a really great position. And I pay everyone handsomely. And it's like because they believed in the vision and the seeds that I planted many, many years ago.
Okay, so your full-time was executive assistant, but your side hustle at the time, what was exactly you were doing in your business?
How was I making? So I didn't. Yeah. So okay. So I started off as a freelance writer and journalist.
Okay.
Right. Then I evolved. Then I wrote my first book in 2014. Then I evolved into a motivational speaker at the time. I still speak, but now more so on business. But so I was a motivational speaker. And then I started my agency 2017. But you know, today we did a post on mentors, and interweaved throughout my side hustles, I've actually worked for many of my mentors in some capacity, interned or volunteered for them. And so I was also getting income from there as well.
Now you were talking about on a video, like the importance of confidence and that you were on an elevator with a CEO.
In the lobby. Yeah.
Lobby. And I'm trying to figure out how someone that used to have social anxiety.
I still have social anxiety. Are you crazy?
You come across so confident. Like I go into a room to network, I'm in the corner. Like, thank God I established a name with Nicole, bitch. You said it when I walked in rooms, I didn't have to introduce myself. And then I had a publicist to fall back on who would introduce me to people that didn't know who I was. But I've never conquered the art of working a room.
It honestly takes practice. And I think people need to be patient with themselves. I don't love, there are people who go to 18 different conferences and events and they think that's like highly productive. I don't subscribe to that. I'm definitely more of a one-on-one type of girl and being more strategic. So like I'm part of a chess club. I love the game of chess. So everything I do is very strategic. And so instead of entering a room with so many people, I like to reach out to people one-on-one. I try to hit a quota of a couple strangers a month. I do have a great resource. So for those of you who are looking to meet with innovative strangers, creative entrepreneurs, and executives, lunchclub.ai is fantastic.
Lunchclub.ai.
So lunchclub.ai. So they use AI technology to actually match you with a lunch date. And you can do up to 5 a week. It's really, really great. Yeah, it's really, I've been meeting some incredible people through that network. But yeah, so I'm more of a one-on-one type of person. I think when it comes to your elevator pitch, you really want to be able to clearly articulate who you are, what you do, who you help, and what is the benefit to working with you. You want to be brief in your elevator pitch as well. Like, don't start talking about the weather and all that shit. Like, just get to the point. And it really helps so people don't buy into products or service, or they buy into the experience as a result of, right? The transformation as a result of working with you. So that's really what you're bringing forth. So don't push the product or service per se, push the result that they will experience. And I think that also helps too. So when I was, for those of you who don't know the story, I was in the lobby with a friend, and the friend that I was speaking to knew the CEO of the company. I think he actually owned the building, and he introduced me, and very New York of him, he was like, what do you do? Before he even said hi or really acknowledged me, he was like, what do you do? And so I hit him with my elevator pitch. And one thing I will say, you will have more than one elevator pitch, right? I have about maybe 4 or 5, depending on who I'm talking to, what the objective is, because I do more than one thing, right? So like if I'm talking to someone about my mentorship, I may not even mention ghostwriting. Right? So I did my elevator pitch. He was a CEO. So I pulled out the ghostwriting elevator pitch, and he was like, oh, I need someone like you on my team. Great timing. And literally within weeks, I had signed, I think it was a $20,000 contract.
Wow.
Right? Just from that one conversation.
So what I noticed about you, well, first of all, I invited Pauleanna. That's how she has an impression on people, because she interviewed me for Forbes, and by the time we got off the phone, I was like, I need you to speak at my event. And the event was the next week. I didn't even know she was in Canada. But then she comes to the event and she does a panel, and it was about 5 people on the panel, maybe.
Yeah.
And
when I tell you, I was sweating in the hotel the night before. I was like, I was just like, okay, there's a lot of people on the panel. I'm probably only going to get 2 minutes to speak. What are you going to do with that time? You know what I mean? Again, chess move. And when I tell you, I came up with that acronym the night before and I memorized it, I was like, girl, do not F this up.
And that's where I was going with that. You took full control of that 4 minutes. When it was like, when it was her time to talk and she got called on, she came spitting. Like, I was scrambling to get my notepad. I was like, wait a minute, I was not ready. And she just, you delivered it with such confidence. And it was in such a homegirl, like no nonsense type of way. I was living over on the side. I was living. But another thing I noticed is after our event, Pauleanna reached out to me and she pitched her services. She's like, this is where I think you could use some help. Like, and that could turn into like us working together, because I'm still thinking about how we can work together.
Right.
Today. Even my makeup artist told me she hired you to do her executive summary and her business stuff. And I'm like, well, how did you hear about her? She's like, I met her at your event.
Yeah, you can't, honestly, you cannot be intimidated by titles. These people are human just like you. And I know that it's scary sometimes, but you have to realize that like you got to shoot your shot. You just don't know. You don't. And even if perhaps they can't hire you for the service, they may know someone in their network. I was on a call with the CMO at BET, right? And you know what I mean? Like, she wants to connect me to other CMOs in her network. And so it just has a ripple effect. And then the other thing I want to say is like, so you said something very key. You said like, I had a homegirl approach. I was really casual, but no nonsense. Really identify what your brand's personality is, right? Like, stay true to you, but really identify, are you, a girl next door? Are you the girlfriend? Are you like, straight to a sharpshooter? Like, really hone in on that. Look at Cardi B, for instance, right? Like, she's probably an excellent example of someone who like, she really doesn't care what other people think about her accent, right? About, her delivery, every once in a while, me and Cardi, you may hear an F-bomb. Like, I'm not curbing myself for anybody. I'm sitting in rooms with CEOs and executives, and they may hear an F-bomb or two, right? They may, honestly, like the biggest deals that I've closed, or the fastest deals that I've closed, is the result of me really just being myself, like showing up in a tracksuit. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not, and that's not for every meeting, but there are some in creative industries, most of the time you can really just show up as yourself. You don't need the stilettos and all that stuff. I prefer kicks anyway. But also too, like I was speaking to the director of business operations at the NBA, and I had my presentation and we're talking, and she's like, at the end of the call, she's like, okay, so tell me something that's not on your deck. And I was like, this was like, a while ago. And I was like, damn, like that really stumped me. And I'm like, at the end of the day, that's all they care about. So like now I speak to, a lot of times in my pitch, I speak to my underdog past. So I may say, I'm a journalist, I'm a celebrity ghostwriter, but oddly enough, I actually didn't finish college. I dropped out of college because I didn't see my dream job in the traditional school system. So I really turned the world into my classroom. Girl, when I say that, they're like, they're like, you know what I mean? Like, I really think you need to, and again, it's connecting the dots of your life, right? Really looking to your past and really understanding what is the most relevant information that I can bring forward at this time that would really connect with who I'm speaking to. And again, research, understanding their background, right? So if you went to an HBCU and they went to an HBCU, then say that, right? Like, you have to connect dots.
I think you actually gave me the guts to say I'm a college dropout because, I never had the guts to say that. I felt like people would be like, why is she qualified to be running this company, etc. But now I'm like, it's a part of the story. And
it's
I'm
a part
still
of
here.
the
Yeah.
And we're running circles around some of our peers with 4-year degrees. So that's that. You know what I mean? But the secret to really getting meetings with some high profile people is reducing stress and adding value. I want everybody to remember that. Reduce stress and add value.
You said something very profound. I think on a podcast, they were asking you what was next for you. And you said, a lot of people are focused on leveling up. I'm dedicated to maintaining excellence where I'm at. And then you went on to say, most people don't stick to anything long enough to master it. Can you talk a little bit more about the importance of, because a lot of times we want to be the hyphenated and then, be known for doing all these things.
No, there are too many people that are good at 8 different things and phenomenal at nothing. You know what I mean? Like, you really have to think about, like, what do I want to be known for? When people hear Pauleanna Reid, they associate that with excellence. They associate that with consistency. They associate that with dedication, right? Like, a good measure would be to text 10 of your friends and ask them, what is my greatest asset? You have people who are, the mailman, the babysitter, the horseback rider, just the baker. And it's like, girl, like, master one thing at a time. Because if you are giving your energy and attention to 5 different things, you're not giving 100% to anything. And it takes time, right? At this point in my career, I'm a multi-hyphenate, but I started my first business 10 years ago. So I've kind of earned that right? But everything I have done, I've mastered one thing. When I was writing, mastered it. Then I moved on to writing my book, mastered that. Then I moved on to public speaking, then philanthropy, then mentorship. I took time. And when people often come to me and they're like, well, I do so many things and I like so many things. I have so many ideas. What I tell them is, you want to pursue the path that has least resistance, right? What comes the most natural and the most easy to you? When I started my agency, The Writer's Block, I had that idea from 2014. I didn't launch it until 2017 because I believe in the timing of your life, right? You really have to hone in on that.
Man, that's especially in this internet age, we're going to try everything and see what sticks.
You just can't, because then honestly, like, we all know someone who does a little bit of everything, but really they do nothing. I don't want to be that girl.
You've mentioned being diagnosed with depression in the past. And it's something I feel like that doesn't go away. What methods do you take to keep your mind fit and to ensure you get out of bed each day and effectively run your business, even when depression is rearing its ugly head, especially now during the pandemic?
So I've had depression and anxiety since I was a child. It stems from insecurities. It stems from, living, I told you my father's a former pastor. I come from 2 very traditional parents. My mother's Trinidadian, my father's Jamaican. I come from a family of rules and limitations and not being allowed to express myself creatively. I've always been a very imaginative person, and just like, I felt like a lot of people, including teachers and counselors, put their lid on my dreams. And so my depression is triggered by someone who has power or an authority figure telling me how I should live my life, or trying to design my life or define my life. And it's like, I just never understood that. And so I think today well, you know, over the last 10 years, I was diagnosed in 2010, and over the last 10 years, and I had two suicide attempts in 2008. That's why I actually dropped out of school. And over the last 10 years, I really want to say that the formula looks different for everybody. There's not no one size fit all. I also had a doctor who was very instrumental in my recovery process. And so that plays a huge role, because I, to my understanding, a lot of people don't have family doctors, or a lot of people don't have a great relationship with, you know, their family doctor. And especially if you're, you know, my doctor was white, rich, and famous. So like, again, I wasn't on any waiting list for any medication or therapy. So I had it very good. But my recovery process looked like the mixture of definitely medication. I feel people who say like, oh, you shouldn't take medication, you have to know what's right for you. You know what I mean? You can't really put that statement on everybody. I definitely took medication. I needed the medication. I'm currently off it, but I have it just in case. Talk therapy, so individual therapy and group therapy. I find group therapy very helpful, because when you're able to hear the stories of other people, like and again, it's like an AA meeting. It's like round circle. Everyone everyone says their stuff. That was really helpful. Diet is very helpful, like watching the foods that you eat, working out, journaling, sometimes fresh air, you know what I mean? And the last thing is being very intentional, living a goal-centered lifestyle. And goals don't have to look like, I want to go to Harvard University. Sometimes goals are like, I want to get out of bed, brush my teeth, take a shower. You know what I mean? So like, give yourself that grace. There's a spectrum.
I wanted to know, because you failed like what, 11th and 12th grade English, or 10th and 11th grade English.
Yeah.
How do you go from like failing English to a career in writing? You know,
my teachers used to make me feel so dumb. I remember failing I remember in summer school. So I failed my 11th grade English, and I went to summer school, and I failed a quiz in summer school. And in front of everybody, the teacher was like, was this hard for you? And I just remember feeling like, God damn, like, I just, you know, like, I didn't feel like the traditional school system really supported kids like me. You know what I mean? And so I later learned in my 20s that I am actually a visual learner. And this is very important. How you really need to understand how you retain information, because not everyone learns the same way, right? And so in my 20s, I realized like, I'm not dumb. I just learn differently. And in the public school system, they teach you one freaking way. So like, of course you're going to have some of the kids who are C&D students on a regular basis, which was me. And so I was bullied a lot as a kid. I was bullied. I was tormented. I got pregnant, and just a lot of drama. And so I used to spend a lot of time by myself. And so I would write during my lunchtime. I'd spend literally my lunch hour in the cafeteria, the library, or the girls' washroom, like chilling by myself, because I didn't want people to bother me. And I love the feeling I got when I was writing. And so I would typically write what life would be like outside of this hellhole, to be honest. I'd write, journals and stuff. And I think most people are not chasing, I think we're all chasing a feeling. Like, how do we want to feel when we wake up every day? How do we want to feel when we're doing our art, whatever art form that is? And so for me, I was chasing, when I was by myself writing, that's when life felt perfect and peaceful. That's the same energy that I wanted in whatever I was doing in the future. So that's why I was so determined to kind of like not be a statistic and kind of just like really practice my craft. And that's the thing. You get better with practice. That's the only way you're going to get better at anything, is if you practice it. After I dropped out of school, I met a mentor in 2009. And she told me, if you want to be a writer, then people need to know that you write. So start a blog. And literally that was the catalyst that just, from that blog, again, you don't know who's watching and what power they hold. So my blog was a shitty, Blogger.
Yep.
So that's where I started. It was free. It was shitty. And now everyone's chasing, everyone wants a pretty, perfect, sparkly website. Girl, just publish the blog. You know what I mean?
And consistently.
Everyone's just waiting for, it has to be perfect. I want to wait for the right time. Like, people actually don't care as much as you think. Like, a lot of times you're just in your head. So I got 12 views a month for a while, whatever. You don't know who's watching, what power they hold. From that blog stemmed an opportunity to then work for a publishing house. And I was a freelance writer for that publishing house. And I was published in every major newspaper across the country for the next few years.
Wow. And then how did you end up at Forbes?
Oh, that's an interesting story. So we often talk about mentors and sponsors, and we can talk about that in a bit. I had a mentor who doubled as a sponsor. So when we talk about getting into rooms with people, right, I use my blog to facilitate conversations. So like if you have a podcast or a blog, that's an excellent opportunity to get into a room, okay? So when I say that, like it gave me the opportunity to feature people, right? And when you have, that's how me and you met. I got into the room with you. So like be strategic in who you feature on your platform, because that could be the seed that starts a beautiful friendship or a mentorship. So I saw someone on Shark Tank. Her name is B. Arthur. She's in the tech space. I featured her on my blog. This was in 2014. We blossomed into a sisterhood, a friendship, a mentorship. Eventually, I earned sponsorship from her. So she was my advocate. She called me one day and she's like, hey, I called her actually, after I felt like I earned the right to ask. And that's the thing. Don't expect mentors to read your mind, right? If you want something, ask for it if you feel like you've earned it. So I picked up the phone and I said, I would love to write for Forbes. Can we schedule some time to walk through what that process looks like? She then hit me up a few days later and she's like, hey, I'm actually having a meeting at their offices. She lives in New York. She's like, I actually have a meeting at their offices and you should come with me. Remember, I'm in Toronto. I'm like, okay, like how am I work a 9 to 5, like what? So she's like, oh, you know what? She's like, don't even worry about it. Like there will be other meetings. I was like, no. That's a trick question. Nope, I'll be there. So let me tell you something. I left work early at 1 p.m. I jumped on the 4 p.m. flight. I got there at 6 p.m., right? I went to the 7 o'clock meeting. I sat with the editors and my mentor and we chopped it up for a little bit. Then I had dinner with a friend. I made sure I booked the 6 a.m. So then I went to the airport, slept on the airport floor, got on the 6 a.m. flight that morning. And I landed at 8 a.m. here in Toronto and went straight to work, had a sponge bath in the bathroom, and then worked a full day. And so I built that relationship with the editor, only to find out that a few months later, she gets let go. And I'm like, you kind of have to start all over. And so when we talked at the top of our discussion, we talked about transparency and revealing parts of ourselves that, you know, we may not think people care about, but in actuality, they do. So I was invited to another meeting, and this time the Bill Cosby trial was the hot topic of discussion. And there was a round table, and I was so intimidated because you had Forbes editors and you had other established writers, and then you had a few few wannabes like me, right? And I'm like, so I'm a survivor of sexual assault. And date rape and whatnot. And so they're talking about the Bill Cosby trial and whatnot. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, do I jump in? Do I not? Do I jump in? Do I not? Will I sound stupid? So I raised my hand and I told my testimony in 5 minutes. And I really think that was the conversation. And that was the moment where the new editor saw me and was like, I love that you have an opinion. I love that you're open and transparent. I love that you're honest. Let's continue this conversation. Within the next little while, I was onboarded. And then one more quick thing, within a year, so Forbes has 2,300 writers. Within a year, so I onboarded July 2017. By August 2018, I was then promoted to a senior contributor. Out of 2,300 writers, only 50 of us became senior contributors. And at that time, I was only one of 2 women of color.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I keep hearing you, when you talk about mentors, you also say sponsors. What is a sponsorship or in regards to mentorship?
So mentors are in your life to guide your steps. You know what I mean? Like they're there as advisors. Sponsors are individuals who are going to put their name on the line for you, who are going to pick up the phone, who are going to write the introduction email, who are going to nominate you for the award, who are going to write the recommendation letter. So they're going to act on your behalf so that you can get access to the resource, the funding, into the room, or the contact.
Wow. I'm listening to you and I'm like, she just moves in excellence. Like,
I mean, and sponsorship has to be earned. I think We come from a generation where everyone just like, gimme, 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 gimme. Like, you know what I mean? So there's Amanda Seales often talks about your self-worth versus your market value. And what I take from that is like, I think people come from like an ego-driven place when they're like, oh, I deserve this, right? But a sponsor is really going to also look at your market value. Like, you know, how are you perceived by industry peers? What is your reputation? They're going to take so many things into account before they just, no industry veteran is going to put their name on the line for you if they're not sure. You know what I mean? That's a huge responsibility. So you want to make sure that you're doing everything in your power to make sure that you've checked all your boxes. So when someone co-signs you, like, you know, you don't disappoint.
So I definitely want to get into the mentorship thing, because I think you mentioned you had 5 or 6 mentors.
6.
How'd you get so many mentors?
Gradually over time, and they've been in my life a long time. I think it's important for people to know that mentors can be dead or alive. Okay. I think it's important for people to know that mentors, you don't always necessarily, I have a personal relationship with my 6 mentors, but some mentors, what, you know, maybe it, you know, it could be Halle Berry. She don't know who you are, but you consider her a mentor in your head, right? You raise your hands. A mentor is not a life jacket. A mentor should be, after you've exhausted all of your options, after you've gone to YouTube and Google University, then at that point, a mentor can take you, you know, to the next level after you've shown your receipts. I really think that's important for people to know, because I think people come from a place of, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to start. It's like, girl, like, there are resources available for you to at least take the first few steps. And I think that's an expectation that mentors will have of you. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to waste your mentor's time. You want to come with smart questions. You want to do as much research as possible in your industry, and just not come from a place of just being naive. You know what I mean? Like, show your mentor that you've actually put in some work.
How do you feel is the best way to approach a potential mentor? Like, is it building the relationship with them first before you even ask about the mentorship?
I operate in 2 ways, both sides, honestly. And like, it's really on a case by case basis, because a few of my 2 of my mentors I was introduced to, and then 2 of my mentors I approached straight up. One on Facebook, and the other I'd seen at an event. And then the other 2, I like nurtured that over time. So it really just depends on, you got to kind of read the room. It's like that, like, you got to have intuition to really know how to approach somebody. And again, in your research, they may have a talk or a podcast episode where they literally say how they want to be approached. There's also there's a saying that goes, you know, if you want someone's time, show them a receipt. Right? So find out how to get into the room with your mentor. So maybe you go to a speaking event, maybe you sign up for one of their programs. Like, how can you get into the room? How can you get into that conversation so that you can at least plant a seed and get in front of them? I also think that it's important to talk about, mentors don't need to look like you. I think by default, we kind of cling to or want to learn from other Black women, which is totally fine. But, you know, I have one white male mentor, and he's actually one of the most valuable out of the 6, because we all know Brad, Chad, and John, you know, they're a round table, they're talking at length about, you know, how the boys are, you know, going to buy this next yacht, or, you know, what positions they want to play, you know, in their companies and whatnot. And so he gives me the real, you know, he's really respectful about it. But I personally love having a male perspective, because men operate very different in business, and the world of business is built for white men. So why wouldn't I want to have a white guy on my team? You know what I mean? Like, that's important to me.
How do I make sure that I'm, when I get a mentor, that it's mutually beneficial? Like, how do I make sure I add value to the mentorship?
I think the best thank you to any mentor is to show them how the advice that you have given them has been applied. Right? I think that, like, a slap in the face is when, you know, a mentor gives you 30 minutes of their time or whatever, and like, you come back to them and nothing's done, right? You haven't moved the needle. Like, I think that's really insulting. The other thing is, I mean, like I said, I've either worked for or volunteered for my mentors. You know, it's not a one-way street. Reduce stress, add value in some capacity, ask them what they need help with. Yeah, I think you just have to have a giving heart. You know what I mean? I don't think mentors ask from us. Most people who are in a mentorship position, they want to help, right? And so like anything you do is really a bonus, but I would say thank you goes a long way. And definitely whenever I reach out to my mentors, I always give them a recap of what's happened since we last spoke. I don't just say like, hey, I need this, or can I get more time? It's like, no, here's how I applied the last set of information that you gave me. And this is what my landscape looks like right now.
What are your thoughts on like peer-to-peer mentorship, where instead of someone that's where you want to be, it may be someone
Right.
kind of on the same
Horizontal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That type of mentorship.
I have a lot of, girl, I mean, so like, I think it's really important to, if you cannot tap into your peer groups for solutions or for advice, or if you're not having discussions amongst each other around what you can build together, then you may want to reevaluate those relationships, right? And if you reevaluate those relationships and you realize that you cannot build with them, why are you spending so much time with them? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying you need to cut them off, but maybe you want to distance yourself a little bit. I mean, I have girlfriends who can tell me every step of their skincare routine and can't tell me no plans for their future. Like, I'm not hanging out with you. Like, if you can't tell me anything about the future, like, come on. So I think it's really important. Like, and so I'm a part of 2 mastermind groups. One of them I posted on my Instagram. That post blew up. So, there's a group of women that I'm part of. And I also think like when you are looking horizontally, you will have some peers who are on your level, but it's very, very important that you have peers who are like 5 times further than you are. I'm in one mastermind group where, 2 are millionaires, the 3 of us are 6-figure chicks. And one of my peers who are millionaires, she's getting ready to buy a resort. You know what I mean? Like, I would like, I'm not even thinking like, what? Like, so like, I think that like, it's so inspiring to me to be a part of these groups. Cause then I'm like, it really opens up your mind to what's possible for you. The other thing is you definitely want to have circles of friends where you guys are talking about like, who's the best CPA that you're using? Who's the best lawyer that you're using? Like, let's normalize conversations around building wealth, right? You can't always be talking about memes and TikToks and don't get it twisted. Like, a lot of people need that relief and that, that comedic relief, but there needs to be some intentional focus. In fact, why don't you guys, make an oath to yourself that you're going to be that friend to switch the conversation every once in a while.
Someone wants to know, how did you get involved in those type of groups? How do you even get invited to the table?
Girl. Well, I mean, you have to listen, this is where self-assessment comes in. Okay. Ask yourself, am I the type of person that world-class performers would want to mentor? Am I the type of person that, millennial millionaires, let's call them, would want to mess with? Right. And this is like, the self-work is continuous, right? A lot of friends that I have admired for years, I'm now really close with them. I took the time, instead of pressing myself on them prematurely, I took the time to build myself up to a point where eventually I was invited to the same events they were. I was sitting on the same stages they were. You know what I mean? I could look to my right and look to my left, and you know what I mean? They're like, who are you? You know what I mean? Like, they wondered about me. So like, I think you really need to focus on, I can't even tell you, like, since I've navigated Instagram and really like shown myself and spoke out and spoke up, how many people I'm a longtime fan of have hit me up, right? So like, you have to be a vibe. You know what I mean? And like, I tell my men,
put that on a t-shirt.
I tell my own mentees in my mentorship program, I'm like, some of y'all don't have the circles that you want because you're boring. And like, I keep it very straight up with them. I can do that. But it's like, Alex Wolf says, you can't be interesting if you're not interested. Right? Yes. And what that means is you yourself can't be interesting as a person and can attract the right people if you're not interested in news, pop culture trends, politics, like what's going on? Like, are you like, when's the last time you picked up a book? Like, what can you contribute to a conversation? I think the reason I was invited into these mastermind groups and the reason that I have dope friends like you is because I can contribute and hold myself hold space in a conversation. And I can only do that because I took the time to build my confidence. I took the time to build my business acumen. I took the time to really work on, what I can bring to the table, my unique value proposition, so that, the saying goes, I always say, like, once you're a resource, people will always want to mess with you. So anytime any of my peers hit me up, it's like, I have a resource, I have something because I'm doing all the work in the background, getting ready. Like, build a network before you need it.
I know, that's right. Ooh,
gems.
Girl, gems on gems. It's funny because I was looking at your tweet about group chats, and I was like, nobody puts me in a group chat, but then I'm always on do not disturb, and they're like, girl, you'll be responding, so you're out of here. But what I will say about you is that you do nurture, I believe you do a good job in nurturing your friendships and relationships. Like, even when the pandemic started, you just hit me up to see if I was okay, if I was good, was my mind in the right place. She took the time. I'm actually trying to finish a book proposal. She took the time to put me on her schedule. She reached out to me, like, let's put a time on the schedule so we could talk about your book proposal. So she does a really good job of consistently reaching out and just making sure she's nurturing that relationship and not just reaching out when she needs something.
Do you know why?
What?
I have a spreadsheet. So, and if anyone wants the template, I'm happy to send it. But a lot of us have contacts in our phone, right? And it's kind of like, for me, I'm a very visual person. So I'm probably nurturing like 300 relationships right now, let's say, right? And so I have a spreadsheet, and I have like names, I have, the general info, and then I have, what was the last thing I learned about this person when we spoke, right? Wow. I have, is this person a hot, warm, or cold lead? I have, like, because the thing is, like, you want to try and personalize your relationships, right? So if I know that, Marianne had a daughter that was in a recital 2 months ago, the next time I hit up Marianne, I'm going to be like, how'd your daughter do? Like, what, you want, and the thing is, like, but you can't, it's very hard to remember all of those details. So you want to put it somewhere. So I'm very organized in my contacts and how I organize that information. And I know when was the last time I spoke to somebody, and I try not to let 3 weeks to a month go by without hitting somebody up.
Wow. I'm impressed. This is how she keep up with everybody, y'all. This is amazing. I think a lot of the tribe had questions. We actually had them drop it in the chat and then in the app, but I think I want to let some people raise their hands, and I'll take you off of mute.
Oh, we have a lot of people in here. I didn't even realize that.
Do. Now that I got to gallery view.
One thing I will say, we talked about climbing out of depression and whatnot. I feel like a lot of people are chasing goals that they're not mentally conditioned for. So, some people may have depression. That's a whole other strategic plan. But then there's others who are just lazy, period. Like, let's not sugarcoat that at all. And it's because you're chasing a goal and you feel stuck and like you're not getting anywhere and the needle's not moving, but it's because you're not mentally conditioned to attack that goal. So, like, I find you and I, we value exercise, we value movement, participating in an activity or endurance sport. I find that, like, you increase the functionality of your brain through movement. So I want people to really think about that. And then the other thing that I do in the morning to help set the tone for the day is that I read out my goals every day, like, out loud, right? And so I'm a big believer in that, like, success is part hard work, part law of attraction, manifestation, visualization, part speaking things into existence. There's life and death in the power of the tongue. And so I find too many people write down their goals and just stick it in a drawer. And, like, no wonder you're not attracting anything, people, places, things, experiences, books, etc. It's because you haven't set that tone, that energy, your vibration is low. My vibration's high, baby. Like, I attract everything in my life that I want. And so I do that at the start of my day. And I think that's really important. So I want to remind people to, like, set the tone. Don't just, I never get when people just, like, jump out of bed and rush out the door. I'm like, my mornings need to be like,
Gotta have a ritual. Gotta have some type of ritual or something.
Just flop out of bed. Like, no. That's not how I do my mornings, because then if my mornings rush, the rest of my day is like out of balance.
Yeah, and it's your morning is controlling you. You're rushing through traffic, just insaneness. Now I want to know, because this is again one of my first times really using Zoom for this. How do we know who has their hand raised?
Do you have, is there like a notification? Kyrie, you have a question? You can go ahead and unmute.
Hi. You guys can't see me because I'm driving, but I do have a question.
Cool.
Okay, so since I've graduated, professionally things have moved, but I've just been plagued with this feeling of feeling like, I don't know, like I don't belong, or I don't have enough knowledge to be here. So I was just asking, have you ever experienced that, or even Nicole, have you experienced that in the beginning of your career? Kind of like imposter syndrome, like sometimes I'm just like really in disbelief, like, oh, do I really belong here? Am I really knowledgeable enough to like be a part of this conversation or be a part of this project? And it like really overwhelms me sometimes.
So I want to say this before you answer her question. Kyrie, actually, I was looking for someone to help with email marketing. She sends me not only does she send me a deck, but when I open a deck, it's a video and she's in a little box at the bottom of the video walking me through every page of the deck. But she has imposter syndrome. like that extra work that she put into getting the business went a long way. I had never seen that before. I've gotten decks before, but this was like,
that's impressive. That's awesome.
Impressive.
I mean, honestly, like the more success you experience, you kind of still, like I still go into rooms and into meetings and I still feel that like those butterflies in my stomach. But I talk myself into it, right? And like, you have to understand that like what you want is on the other side of that fear. One thing a practice that I have put in place is I try to do one thing a day that scares me, right? I try to make discomfort feel normal. So that when I'm in situations of rooms and conversations where I may be questioning myself, you know, the feel like the discomfort, you know, I feel it, but then I'm able to move past it. I also kind of check myself and remember my why. Like a lot of times when I'm negotiating deals and whatnot, like my why is, you know, beyond me, right? It's you know, taking care of my parents, it's my siblings that look up to me. And so anytime I'm scared, I kind of just check myself, like, why are you here? Why are you doing this? What's important for you? What are you fighting for? What are you standing on? Just check yourself a little bit and just know that, like, honestly, like you come from a lineage of excellence. You know what I mean? Like you really have to like take that thought in. You come from a lineage of excellence and you have to like talk yourself into it. And as you ascend in your career, you're still going to get the butterflies, but over time, you will master pushing past them.
Yeah. And I think, and during our talk on Saturday, I was telling Pauleanna that after I got acquired by Will Packer, I had imposter syndrome. It caused me great distress for up until May of this year. Like the anxiety was so real. And every day I woke up like, I'm gonna get found out. Like they're gonna see, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Especially when I first got acquired the first week, they were like, I need a budget for next year and I need an editorial calendar. And I was like, you know, and the first thing I thought was, let me hire someone who has worked for a media company before, who has done this before as like maybe the managing editor. And she can teach me. Like you always hire people that know more than you do, so you can learn from them. But yeah, I've dealt with it myself and it caused a lot of suffering. And at some point I had to just list all the things that I had accomplished since the acquisition. Like I pulled my receipts out. Right. like girl, you deserve everything you negotiated for. You deserve to be here. But
absolutely.
I just got to that point this year, over the last few months.
Tanisha, you have a question.
Yes. Good evening, ladies. So before I ask my question, I just have to give a big shout out to Nicole and Pauleanna. I remember the reason how I found Pauleanna was through the pitch panel and the way she was speak. I told her, I'm like, you don't drop gems, you throw them at people's heads. Like Like she's not like, she wants you to have it. So everything that she's saying, I'm telling you, it's so valuable. Before Pauleanna joined, so Pauleanna is my mentor. I did sign up immediately after that panel. And I remember I was on a EXO check-in, a tribe check-in a couple months ago, and I was sitting here like, yeah, I don't know what to do in my life. I don't know what's going on. I don't like my job. What the hell is this? Like 2020 was supposed to be the year, and as we can see, it kind of is. But I just wanted to say that when I first got into this tribe, I really didn't know what it was that I wanted to do. And fast forward to yesterday, after working with Pauleanna and her helping me build my confidence in everything it is I want to do. So social media marketing and ideation and digital strategy and all these things. I went from back in May, not knowing what I wanted to do, to creating a deck that was presented by somebody at the BYOB conference yesterday.
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome. Proud of you, girl. So proud of you.
Amazing.
Thank you. So my question follows along with that. So I'm working with somebody who is very, very particular, and I've gotten over the imposter syndrome. I'm in a place now where I'm like, I'm confident in my abilities, but the person I'm working with, I don't think that they're happy when it comes to certain things. So it's like, how do you manage to stay true to yourself and your creativity with somebody else who has a completely different vision? So I'm kind of being presented with the opportunity to create a media kit, and I really want to do it, especially for this person. I know I can do it, but I don't know if they're going to like it.
So I would have an honest conversation with, so I'm hoping you guys have regular check-ins, and I would have it's a matter of trust. I think that when you are paying someone to do something, sometimes it's so hard to trust. And I would just reassure her that she can trust you and give you creative control and freedom to deliver the best product to her. Just reassure her of that and let her give you a chance, because I don't like clients who micromanage either. And honestly, like, when I use this as a experience to learn from, because as you move forward, you really have to evaluate like what you want in a client partner.
Got it. Thank you.
Nicole, anything to add to that?
Just, I guess, when speaking with the client, what is the expectation of the media kit, and maybe well, a lot of times when I hire someone to do, whether it's a deck or whatever, I send them over samples of decks that I like, or even if I hire somebody to do a lead page, I send them over like 3 or 4 links of the style I'm looking for and what, just what attracts my eye, so they get a understanding of, the quality I'm looking for. So I think that initial conversation would help as well.
Thank you.
Awesome. Alexis, what's up?
Question is, so I am in an interesting space now where I enjoy my job for the most part, but I'm not getting paid enough. I know that for sure. Mm-hmm. And I am also walking, and I'm being more intentional about the way that I speak about the vision and the things that I'm really trying to, striving to step into. So I'm in the process of starting a venture on my own in an entrepreneurial space. But I find myself in this space where I'm like, I want to learn all that I can learn from my job, but y'all aren't paying me enough to invest in what I want, what's next for me. And I just don't feel like I'm in a good enough space, I guess, to step out 100%, like funded and do all those different things. But also feeling like there's still something on the table that I can learn from my job. So like, do you have any, and this is for you and Nicole, like, were there any spaces that you just felt like, look, I got the money, or I don't have the money and I got the talent or the knowledge? Like, where did you guys find your happy medium to say like, okay, I'm leaving my 9 to 5 to go venture out into whatever is next for you? I hope that question makes sense, but I'm just finding myself in a real slippery slope here, it feels like.
Oh, okay. What I hear you say is they're not paying you enough.
Yes.
And you feel it, and so you're unhappy with the pay, but you're also like, you don't feel like it's enough to invest in growing your side hustle.
Yes.
So I would say this, like your profit, the extra profit doesn't have to be tied to a passion. You know what I mean? So like maybe like, because the thing is corporations, I mean, they have limited budgets right now, right? There's, they're not really, there's a hiring freeze. So you have to think like that option is probably not a bit like, and honestly, if you were to ask for a raise, how much do you think they're really going to serve? You know what I mean? Like corporations are pretty stingy. So just really think about, how can I make profit in other ways? And it doesn't have to be tied to the business per se. You can be, I have a girlfriend who's a dog walker. You know what I mean? I have a girlfriend who, just I have another girlfriend who sells stuff on eBay. I have another, you know what I mean? So like try to be innovative and creative with different side hustles to help you meet those revenue goals. Again, if they can't give you an increase in profit, maybe you can vouch for a title change, right? Maybe you can negotiate some other things, maybe more vacation. And again, if you are also pitching for an increase in revenue, you really have to document. You should be documenting what you've done to increase their bottom line too, right? You should present them with something that really shows them the receipts of how you've contributed value to the company's success.
Nice. Okay.
I don't, the only reason why I don't have a response for that, but when I say your girl could not keep a job, I could get a job, but I could not keep one. Like the fact that I've been in this field and doing my own thing for over 12 years is crazy, because I could not keep a corporate job.
And nonprofit life is unforgiving. It's great, but when it comes to trying to sustain, and I live in DC, so to only imagine.
Oh, yeah. How long have you been at your job?
Actually 2 years, 2 days. So I've been there for a while, but I've moved up I've done some movement within it, so that's why I feel like it's still worth being there. I think I have gained a lot of like professionalism, and if for anybody that knows, like DC is a really great space for nonprofit, for learning like your ins and outs. And so I think for the grassroots piece of it, I can appreciate my job, but I'm also like, okay, thank God that it's been sustaining me and making sure that my bills are paid. But now that I am really, evolving into this entrepreneurial space, is like starting a business in DC. First of all, it's absolutely, those prices are absurd. Let's get that out there. So if anybody is in the area trying to register names and LLC, just be prepared. But yeah, so it's just really interesting to see like how, I guess, one income can help you survive. But when it's time to like step out into other pieces, it's just like, okay, something has got to give. And so I appreciate that. Thank you all.
No Pauleanna, how long did you, were you doing both your 9 to 5 and 5 to 9, as they call it? Well,
a decade. Like
for a decade?
Yeah. Like what? I dropped out in 2008, right? And then it wasn't until January 2019 that I quit. Right? So I've been working during that whole time. And I think that like, just be patient with, how old are you, Alexis?
26.
Be patient with yourself. It will happen. I mean, and you have to ask yourself, what are you willing to sacrifice, right? Mm-hmm. Now's not the best time to be quitting any job, but you know what I mean? But at the same time, no, for sure. But like at the same time, I just feel like if your job is not giving you the revenue that you need, you're going to have to be very creative. You're going to have to be very creative to make that profit.
Well, I just want to put a plug out there. I have been learning how to braid, y'all, and I think I'm
doing you go. If
I put my pictures out on the tribe, y'all tell me how I do, okay? Because I'll be taking clients. Listen, I'll have masks at the door, so we'll be ready to go. So y'all let me know if you are in the DC area.
I want to say one of my best friends, she was she worked for the government in Atlanta for a long time, but she started her event planning business maybe 5 years ago, I believe. And it got to the point where she was booked up every single weekend. But she still kept her 9 to 5. She just recently, probably less than a year ago, let go of her 9 to 5 because she could do most of her work for her event planning business at work, and still make sure her work was done for the day. So she kept it as long as she could.
Yeah. And I know that it's hard money-wise, but again, look at the learning opportunity, because the learning opportunity is going to make you that long money.
And she has 4 kids and she's married and she was able to make it all work.
It can work.
I feel like it's not enough hours in the day, but like you said, you have to sacrifice.
Manage your time.
Yeah.
There's 24 hours is more than enough to create. More than enough to create. Daniela?
Hey there. Thank you so much for this. This has been super helpful, super informative. My question is going back to your mentors, where you mentioned you have 6. Do you have them for different aspects of your life, like life, business, relationships, etc., or is it just different perspectives for everything? Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course it makes sense. Yeah, different perspectives, and they focus on different areas of business as well. You really have to, like, again, do that assessment and ask yourself, what do I need the most help with? And mentors don't have to be in your industry. They don't have to be in your age bracket, salary bracket, etc. Like, I always ask myself, you know, well, number one, my rule is I don't typically take advice from people I wouldn't trade bank accounts with. And number two, when I look at someone's life, you know, you're not supposed to ask someone directions or someone, you know, advice or directions if they haven't been where you want to go. So when I look at each of my mentors and I look at their life and when I look at how they carry themselves, how they're a mom or a father or a businesswoman, do they exhibit the qualities and the values that are aligned with, you know, who I want, the woman I want to become? So I ask myself that too. So sometimes they may not necessarily specify or specialize in a specific area, but there's something about them and how they carry themselves, how they've organized their life, the things that are in their life that, you know, have their thought process that I really admire and that attracted me to them. Oh, the other thing I want to say is about informational interviews. So if you're also looking for a way to get in and get into a conversation or a room with somebody, like the best way to get a quick 10-15 minutes is asking someone if you can have an informational interview. Never say you want to pick someone's brain, ever. So you want to have an informational interview to learn about their journey. And honestly, most executives, they'll be open to a quick call. Just be specific as to how much time you require. No more than 15-20 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, you're just really just trying to get in, plant a seed, learn about their journey, and get out.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for that.
No problem. Rashonda, what's up?
Hello, ladies. How are you all?
Great. How are you?
Sorry, a little nervous. I don't even know why, because this has been such a wonderful girlfriend type of conversation. But I want to start off, first of all, just thanking both of you. Nicole, I've heard your story so many times, and there's some similarities that I have with you now, having both deceased parents. And so I thank you for sharing your transparency with that. And to our guests, thank you so much for talking about the anxiety and the depression. I saw that on one of your posts as well. And so I wanted to ask, and also thank you so much for giving the tactical information of what to do that 5 before 8 a.m. It feels so good to just say that you've knocked out 5 things before 8 a.m. As small as they can be, you just appreciate in every small achievement, big achievement, whatever that they were. But I wanted to know, what did you do to climb out of that, to get your mojo going? Because for me, I was one of the millions of people affected by COVID. I was laid off in May. I've been at my job for 4 years, but I was so unfulfilled and very much sad. I was just not happy being there. One of the main reasons I stayed is because during that time, my mom was diagnosed with cancer. I became an instant primary caregiver to my mother, and she ultimately passed away. So there was a part of me just trying to rediscover or possibly discover my own identity all over again. And then I get laid off. And in between those spaces, I was doing consulting work. I love to do copywriting and helping people really add value to their unique story behind why they even got started with their business. And I find ways to do that in the copywriting. And so I feel like a year since my mother's passing, I'm just starting to feel normal again enough to, but my capacity is like a soldier crawl. Like I feel like everybody else is zoom, 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 and I'm like, I'm trying.
Hold on. Well, number one, I want to acknowledge and thank you so much for your transparency. Like that is very, I'm so sorry to hear about your loss. But number two, crawling is okay. You know what I mean? Like you just said, I'm watching everyone. Like who cares about everyone? We're not worried about everyone else, because your journey is yours alone, and what is for you is not going to miss you. You know what I mean? So I really want you to, number one, just like shift that mindset, because that's not, everyone else is not important, because you're seeing pieces of their life. You're not seeing the whole picture, the whole story, or any of that. And then the other thing is, you know, the only way I know how to climb out of any hole, I was telling Nicole the other day at BYOB, is gradually, one step at a time, right? If you can't run, you walk. If you can't walk, you crawl. If you can't crawl, you drag your ass to the finish line, right? That's it, period. Like you're doing the best you can, the best way you know how. I hope that you have some, well, at the very least, you have the xoNECOLE tribe as support that you can lean on, right? And so even if listen, I hear stories all the time of founders who quit their jobs in 2 years or made it to $1 million in 3 years. And like, listen, my climb was slow. I was a side hustler for 10 years. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not ashamed of that. That's my story. So you really have to just like, the reason why you have gone through all of this, you know what I mean, is because like, God knows you're capable of rising up with an even greater message. And there's so much ahead of you. You know what I mean? So like, you really, like your climb, like it's because you're really just, you're taking your time and you're being built. You have to bend before and break before you can be rebuilt. You know what I mean? And so one foot in front of the other, that's all you can do. You're good. Like you are good. That's all you can do. And that's fine.
Thank you. I was not supposed to get emotional. Thank you so much, ladies. Thank you.
I will say, because people always ask me, like, how did I keep going? Even though I lost my parents, I have no living grandparents. It is isolating, very isolating. But I've recently realized I used overworking as a coping method. And so I kept myself busy for so many years. I don't even think it took me turning 35 and me leaving my celebrity gossip blog before I even had a chance to breathe. Because I'm
35.
You know what I mean? But I now I'm giving myself the grace to feel something, to cry if I have to cry, to get it out. Because it is difficult. Like losing a parent isn't easy. And then you have all these milestones that come, and you thought you could share those milestones with that parent. But yeah, like Pauleanna said, it's a gradual, if you got to crawl. I think we look on social media, we think everyone but us has it together. And
listen, a lot of people
everybody
don't.
falls apart. Right, for sure. And so, yeah, give yourself the grace to feel right now. It's still very fresh and very new. And then you have the pandemic that you're dealing with on top of that, and the loss of a job. It's a lot of things to process at once. But I also feel like God, he takes us through, like when my parents passed, I just felt like they were like angels that led me to different milestones in my life. Almost like that angels in the sand kind of you see in old people's bathrooms.
We had it in our house.
Right, yeah. And then you just see the one set of footsteps because they're carrying you. So I look at it like that, so that it was like a perspective shift. Like that, like people that are around me right now, they're only here temporarily, and they're my angels, and they're here to get me to certain places in my life, and they may not be here forever, but when they are taken from me, it's not for me to suffer. They just carried me as far as they could.
Oh,
I love that.
Love it. Thank you, ladies, so much. And thank you, everyone. People are commenting, just sending me love. Thank you all so much. This is why I love the tribe. Thank you all so much. Thank you both.
For sure.
You are most welcome. You're most welcome. Natasha, where are you at?
Okay. Hi, ladies. How you all doing?
Good, thanks.
Good. So my question is, I'm looking for a mentor. And I heard you say that they don't necessarily have to be in our field. Am I asking too much when I want my mentor to already be a millionaire?
You're not asking too. I don't think you're asking too much. I think like, you know, as long as, I mean, that's going to come with a responsibility as a mentee. Like, that's not going to be, you know what I mean? Like, if you are requesting a millionaire's time, be ready to put in the work, be ready to have the mindset, be you know what I mean? Just be ready to do the work. But I don't think, I mean, that was an ask that I had when I was trying to figure out, you know, who do I want in my mentorship circle. And, you know, the white gentleman in my mentorship circle is a millionaire, and that's something that I really wanted, and I attracted him into my space. I think one thing that we didn't mention is like the structure of mentorship relationships. And so you know, as long as you have discussed with this individual how you want to structure this mentorship, you know, with me and Stuart, we do 1 hour once a month. We've been doing that for 6 years. With my other mentors, you know, I kind of have the free will to text them or call them when I please. So as long as you have those, you know, the structure involved, and they understand that the time that they need to invest, I think that's more than okay. There's a lot of millionaire founders who also have programs and coaching programs, mentorship programs that you can also look into as well. So
how do I access that or find that?
I mean, it really, really just depends on like who you're looking towards. Like, you have to research. Yeah, before you ask anyone to be their mentor, you really should be doing your due diligence and researching them, right? So I would, you know, you can go down a rabbit hole. There's many women of color who have already hit millionaire status, right? Look at the last 50 posts, see who they've tagged, right? Like, the internet is such a great place to do your research. So you'll stumble across the right person.
I have in mind, I just been scared, and you all may be familiar with her, Sharice. She owns Sassy Jewels. She just actually hit number 75 in Inc. magazine.
Cool.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, like I said before, if you want time with someone, show them a receipt. So see if she has any programs available, right? See if you have any mutual friends in their network, in your network. Connect with her, maybe on LinkedIn to start. You know, I think it's when you're trying to get into rooms with busy people, you want to also maybe look at the gatekeepers, right? Who are their assistants or their stylists or their agents or their managers, as well. Getting a cosign also helps. So just do some research on her. There should be, you know, there might be a place on her site where she does consultations, right? You know, you just have to really look.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. That was my question.
No problem. I'm so sorry. I don't know how to pronounce your name.
It's fine. I put my name backwards just to be creative.
Okay. What's up? What's your name?
Dulce Maria.
Got you. Okay. So what is your question?
So I'm a college student and I'm about to graduate. Well, technically I graduate. I just have one more class to take. And I was thinking of starting a business, but I'm currently not working. So I wanted to know what's your advice about.
Why do you want to start a business?
I just starting something new in my life because I feel like I'm trying to look for a job, but it's been challenging. So that's why I wanted to know what's your input of what should I do while like I'm looking for one or go about doing
I think so. Okay. So a lot of people, and this doesn't mean it applies to you, but I think a lot of people are starting new businesses out of desperation, not because they're actually like meant to be an entrepreneur. Right. So I think that like self-assessment needs to happen. You know what I mean? Like, you can't just default to wanting to build a business because it's challenging to find a job. Right. Because there's a difference between just having some high side hustles for income and like actually building a business. Like, you know what I mean? Like, two different mindsets. So like, is it a matter of, I can't find a job, it's very challenging, you know, I need to pay these bills and I need extra income, or I think I am built to be an entrepreneur and I want to pursue entrepreneurship and build a business?
I think when I was a blogger, I mean, when I first started my Nicole Bitchy blog, I didn't have a business mindset. Like, this is going to be a business. But it turned into one, and I had to learn really fast.
I just want people.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I wanted to say that just because I've learned now over the years, like you said, everyone isn't built for entrepreneurship, you know, and there's a lot of money that goes out before it comes in,
But
depending
just
on
because,
what it comes in.
yeah, but just because something's hard, it doesn't mean you need to start a business, is what I'm saying. You know what I mean? Like, because finding a job will be hard because of the current climate, but like, why not dig deeper and maybe like talk to a recruiter, refine your resume, build a LinkedIn page? It doesn't mean the answer is I need to start a business, is what I'm saying. So I'm just trying to get inside your head a little bit more to really find out, like, do you really want to start a business, or do we need to explore other options to help you find a job faster?
Thank you, because I was just like, I feel like I'm going to sit this through, but I just want to make sure. But thank you so much for taking the time out to answer it.
I hope that helped. And I hope I hope you understand where I'm coming from. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
okay, beautiful.
I definitely do. I can, like, when you said take a self-assessment, whether to do it for desperation or not, that's just like a light bulb hit. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, good. Jewel, what's up? Jewel C.
My question is, I've heard you and a few others mentioned LinkedIn a few times tonight, and I don't have any social media at all. So that's why I'm also really, really grateful for this platform, because it allows me to still kind of be able to access a lot of the resources without having to kind of fully be out there in the social media world. But my question is, I'm still trying to figure out kind of what I want to do. Like, I want to make a career switch. Prior to COVID happening, I would attend a lot of networking events just to meet people and hear about, you know, how they got started in the businesses that they're in. But right now, obviously with COVID happening, I wanted to know, I really don't want to like be on social media at all, but do you think it's still beneficial to at least have a LinkedIn? And I guess, and if I do that, how do I still kind of protect my peace, because it makes me really anxious? How do I still protect my peace, but also still kind of put myself out there, because it is the world that we live in now, where this is just how we have to kind of do things now. So I hope that makes sense. But how do I get past that? Because it really makes me really anxious. I tried it. You know, Instagram, I deleted it. I tried it 3 times. Tried Facebook, got rid of that. Tried LinkedIn twice, got rid of it. So, yeah.
So why do you get rid of your social media? Is it because, are you triggered by comments? Are you triggered by the posts?
I'm triggered by the post. I feel like it's really hard for me to be on social media and not compare myself when I already feel like, okay, I'm not really where I want to be at. And you know, it's just in my face constantly, all these posts of all these things. And I know not to always believe everything I see, but it's still like, it's kind of easier said than done. It's kind of hard to refrain from having those thoughts when it's just constantly in your face from all different angles.
Ooh, Nicole, you want to take this one? Because I live on social media.
Yeah,
so I don't really.
I know, like, you know, I'm protecting my peace right now. But I think your social media experience is based on who you choose to follow. So I try not, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it's a lot of people on mute right now because I feel like they're super, super flashy, and I don't want to compare myself to whatever they're doing and think I gotta go out and run and buy something new in the middle of a pandemic. So I mute a lot of people right now just to protect my peace.
That's a good plan.
And then, like, when I'm on Twitter, I have a Twitter for everything. I got tech Twitter, where it's a burner account, but I'm I'm following all these tech people so I can keep up with what's new and what's popping. That's how we ended up shifting our event experiences to virtual onto Hopin, because I had tech Twitter going, and I saw the guys from Quarantine was the first ones that did an event on Hopin, and I contacted them immediately and said, hey, we want to take our pajamas and lipstick virtual. If I never had my tech feed, I went and see that. I got my book feed, and I'm following all these authors. So I use it I use it as a news feed so that I can keep up with what's going on in different areas, you know. I same with Instagram. It's sometimes you just got to go back in and clean up your feed and get rid of some of the people that's not adding value to your life in any way. If their feed makes you feel a certain type of way, mute them, restrict them, or unfollow. You know, most of the time they won't even notice. So basically, in conclusion, your social media experience is based on who you choose to follow.
What about, so like the last time I deleted my Instagram, I kind of wasn't really following anyone that I really knew. It was more so people that I felt inspired me. But then when I would meet people at these networking events, I'm fine with like, you know, still nurturing those relationships by texting or calling or email, but they're just like, okay, what's your Instagram? What's your LinkedIn? And I'm like, oh, I don't have that. And then when I did have that, I was kind of hesitant to give them that information when I only had like 2 followers. Or 2 or 3 actual followers when I was the one following, you know, hundreds of people, but I had 2 or 3 followers. So I didn't want to give them my Instagram handle or LinkedIn when I didn't really have like that following.
I mean, you can navigate that conversation by just giving them your preference. Like if you prefer to exchange other contact info other than social media, then say that. You know what I mean? Like they can't read your mind. I would say, like, just be honest. Just be like, you know what? I don't participate in social media, but I'd love to exchange emails and continue the conversation there. I actually don't love exchanging, like, you know, if someone follows me on social media, that's cool, but I like to conduct business via email. So actually, like, I'm on the same page as you. I like to move things to email. But I would say out of all the social platforms, I feel like LinkedIn, I know you said you tried it before, but I feel like that is the least toxic because it's more of an adult playground. You know what I mean? Like there are real professional, like you have to conduct yourself in a certain manner on LinkedIn because you're at the risk of losing your job or like, you know, your professional reputation being lost. So I feel like people behave themselves on that platform.
Okay.
Jewel, I feel honored that you're a part of the tribe, considering that you.
I'm so thankful for you. I'm like, my friends are like, how do you know about? Like, how do you know about all this stuff in the world? I'm like, because Nicole.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's so nice to meet you, Jewel. Thank you so much.
It's nice to meet you both. Thank you.
Shonda White, what's up?
Hey. How's it
Hi.
going?
Hi.
Good.
I was taking notes. I had a quick question about ghostwriting. I know you touched on it briefly earlier, but I wanted to know kind of how your journey was in terms of how you started with ghostwriting. And I think I've kind of had the imposter syndrome where I felt like, even though people would approach me about it, I was like, I don't know if I'm ready and I don't know. So I just kind of like resisted it. But if you would just kind of explain like how you got into it and like how you knew you were like ready for it, that would be great.
And Shonda is an author. She has a book on Amazon, I believe, right? Don't even
awesome.
Claim it.
About me. This ain't about me.
Claim it.
Shonda, let me hear your elevator pitch.
Put her on the spot.
Shonda, come on.
I'm on with y'all today.
You can do it.
It's probably gonna be terrible, but I usually just say that I am passionate about women empowerment, but I feel like my purpose is to encourage and empower women through life and love, real talk. So I'm like your girlfriend that just girl next door who like you just talk to about life and love and just keep it real based on my personal experiences.
That was great. What was wrong with that? You have to have belief in yourself and don't preface it with this is going to be terrible. That's like, you got to talk to yourself with more respect. Okay. The other thing is, so you asked about as entrepreneurs, are we ever ready for anything? You know what I mean? Like you're never 100% ready. I do what makes sense, right? Facts over feelings. So I've been a journalist for a while. I'm a big fan of the blue ocean strategy. For those of you who don't know, I'll give you an opportunity to look it up. So your unique value proposition, pretty much. And so for me, I was like, I don't want to be a journalist for my entire life. I want to pivot in my career. Journalism is triggering. So what are other options available to me as a writer? And there are zillions of other options available to us. I came across an article in 2014 about a ghostwriter who dropped out of high school. I put it in my memory bank and I was like, oh, that's cool. I want to revisit that. Not even knowing that in my corporate career, I was already technically ghostwriting. I just didn't know what it was. So I was writing speeches and emails for my bosses anyway. I just didn't have a name for it. And so as I ascended, I revisited the idea in 2017. that's when I decided to really like start with 0 contacts, 0 connections. And it's really just a matter of hitting, again, like remember I said, when you have that blog, you just hit publish. It's really just a matter of hitting go. I knew that like, I knew who I wanted to serve. So top tier, wealthy individuals, athletes, celebrities, politicians, high power executives. I knew how I wanted to serve them. So I knew, you know, I was going to specialize in books and keynote speeches amongst other, a suite of services. And I just knew I had to get into the room with them, period. You know what I mean? One of my mentors gave me my first start. Her name is Rakia Reynolds. So again, when we talked about volunteering or working for one of your mentors, so she is the PR to Serena Williams, Jill Scott, Ashley Graham. And so I started working for her maybe 2015-ish. And I worked for her as a ghostwriter, and she gave me my first start. And my first gig with her was to write a speech for one of the world's top supermodels. And so she really gave me the confidence. And like, I had one opportunity to show improve. I didn't have time to be scared. I didn't have time to hesitate. So again, it's one of those things where you need to talk yourself into it and think about when you push through this fear, what's on the other side. If you do your research and you study ghostwriters, you know, many ghostwriters, including myself, you know, we're sitting pretty on, you know, a couple stacks. We're really comfortable. And so your fear is holding you back from like so many riches and blessings. So like, you know, think of the consequences of not pushing forward. You know, you're losing out on a lot. And again, like confidence comes from doing. So you have to kind of, right now you're on the bench, you have to get in the game. And that's how you're going to build your confidence. Start with very small assignments. Maybe don't take on a book or a speech. Maybe take on like a blog post for an executive. Maybe take on some marketing copy or a mission statement, something super small, and build your way up to the bigger projects.
That's good.
I mean, I had to get Charmin, who's on here, to help me with a few blog posts earlier this year when I was doing editor letters, because I was like, I can't get the words, you know, I can't formulate the words right now. I got too much going on in my life. So,
you know what I mean? Like, you're an asset. You know, the world is built by dreamers. You literally can't have anything without writers. So that also makes me like builds my confidence, because you can't have books or movies or television shows or, you know, everything requires writing in some capacity. So like, I feel you know, it's an honor to work with me. You know what I mean? You gotta like talk your shit.
You right.
Thank you so much, Shonda. I really appreciate your question.
Thank you.
Okay, so I don't know how to Ponchmack. Am I saying that correctly?
It's just the name of my computer, but it's Punch.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I want to thank you all for this. It's been amazing. I saw you guys on Saturday as well, and it's just like we're just two comfortable friends catching up, and it just so happened to be on a virtual stage, but I thought that was dope, how you guys just seem so comfortable with each other. But my question is, I've had an opportunity in the past to speak at some speaking engagements, but I've always been uncomfortable about talking about fees and charging. How have you guys managed to set up your fee structure for speaking engagements and whatnot moving forward? I mean, once you got to a certain level.
That's such a good question. The good thing about speaking engagements is that there's no financial cap. I mean, you have speakers who make $500,000 for a single talk, right? I've consulted with other peers who are speakers. I remember I was hired for a panel discussion in Texas, and I had a few other speakers, Renisha Bing, Courtney Sanders, and a few other speakers who were attending the same event, and we consulted with each other. Girl, how much are you charging? How much are you getting paid? I find that like women don't do that enough, like normalize those conversations to make sure we're all getting equal pay. Gabrielle Union speaks about this a lot in, you know, the world of acting, right? And so like we vouch for each other. So like it helps when you have friends who are speakers. But honestly, in the beginning, I was speaking for free, and I don't want people to so even now, as someone who speaks a lot, I will still do free speaking engagements, but I have a quota, right? So once I meet my quota, then I let them know. But like you can negotiate so many other things, even if you're doing something for free. So I don't want anyone to turn their nose up at free engagements, because depending on who's in the room, like for instance, I was invited to go to LA and speak on the same panel of the president of Red Table Talk. right? But it wasn't paid. But hello, I'm going to fly myself to LA and I'm going to get a meeting with the president for Table Talk. You know what I mean? So, but to answer your question directly, I don't have a specific structure for you. I feel like at the end of the day, speakers get paid to fill seats, right? And so I've kind of, my speaker's fee, and I'll tell you my speaker's fees in a second, my speaker's fees has increased as my market value has increased, right? So again, we talked about self-worth versus market value. How does the industry perceive you? How do your, have you earned the respect of your industry peers? Have you reinforced that you know what the hell you're talking about through social media, through video content, through how you live your life? That's how I measure my value, because I know when I come to any arena, I'm going to kill it. You know what I mean? I know when I come to any arena, your audience is going to be shook, right? So, and I also know when I come to any arena, I'm going to also, people are going to want to they're going to want to buy tickets. So that's how, so you really have to do a self-assessment. How much of that work am I doing in terms of like building my market value? And then you can demand whatever you want, pretty much. For a panel, I charge between $2,500 to $3,000, and that's for a panel, 30-minute, ish, whatever. And then for keynote speech, I mean, honestly, that could range upwards to close to 10,000, depending on, and it depends on various factors. How long is the speech? How many people are in the seats? You know what I mean? It depends on, the nature of the speech. So like I have a contract, and I'm more than happy to send you my speaker's contract. So I get all the details, and then I kind of make my decision. But before you even say a number, always ask for their budget first. Okay. Always. Don't pigeonhole yourself, because you may say, oh, my fee is $200 when they had a $10,000 budget. Right? Yeah. So like make them do the play first.
Okay. Yeah. And you may, I think I made a booking request form through Google Forms just so I could ask up front, what is your budget? Am I required to speak to media at the event? How many attendees? What are ticket prices? So you can get the preliminary info. Mm-hmm. I do think speaking for exposure in the beginning so that you can get your reels and sound bites, like Pauleanna.
Yes.
Pauleanna could send someone to elevate her thing and said she had almost 400 comments on her on just her talking about pitching to media when it was posted on xoNECOLE. And so whoever's booking her can get an idea of her delivery, how the audience responds, and she could command more dollars. So yeah. Document.
I always have a videographer at most of my speaking engagements. So I have that and I put it on my YouTube, and I use my YouTube, not because I'm trying to be a YouTuber, but because that's my speaking portfolio.
Yeah. And then some people speak for exposure strategically, like you said, because I was hearing, what's her name? Jewel Burke, who sold her company Park Pick to Amazon. And the way that deal actually happened, she was looking for all these different conferences that she could send, I believe, her developer to, so that her developer could speak on panels and talk more about the Park Pit. And she would look and see what sponsors were there. And Amazon was one of them at one of these conferences. And so that's how her business got acquired. So that's a strategy too. If it's for exposure, okay, but who am I getting exposed to?
Right. Also, in the beginning of my career, when nobody knows your name and you're just not out, you're not popping at all. I created my own speaker series. I did like a 3-part event, free tickets, 50 seats, and I was the main show. So like sometimes don't just wait for people to hire you. I don't know where you are in your career, but to anyone else who's watching, create your own opportunities. And then another thing is I always hear a lot of people saying like, oh, I want to be a speaker, but like I don't see any video content on your socials. Like it's not evident that you're a speaker, that you can actually speak and articulate your expertise. So like don't be backwards. You know what I mean? Like I should see video, I should see IG stories, I should see IG lives, I should see all of that. And I get hired literally off my social content. People are like, I saw a video, I like the vibe, boom.
Thank you.
No problem. Kyrie, what's up?
I have 2 questions. My first question is, you mentioned about that transition, like when, people, y'all just aren't going to the same places, you're on the line. So how do you separate? So undergrad has just been really, really weird. It's just a strange leaving undergrad. it's just really, really strange. You know, you're changing, and as you change, you start to realize, like, things that used to excite you or things that you used to be interested in, they're not interesting to you anymore. And friends you are really, really close with, it's like, I love you, but this is like, I don't even know what to talk to you about anymore. Like, we're not on the same vibe anymore. So how do you...
I mean, I don't think you have to cut them off completely. I think you can literally just like distance yourself from them and not spend as much time with them. You know what I mean? I still have my friends when I used to go to basement parties, and we used to, you know, do all the, you know what I mean? Do things that like not necessarily serve me anymore. But like, I still love them as humans. I still love, you know what I mean? I still love the people they are. I just don't, we just don't hang out all the time because our focus is just different. So I think that, it's important to have a variety of different people in your life, right? Different types of friends. So if you still love them as, as girlfriends, like keep them in your circle. I don't think it's, just because they have a different focus, I don't think that's reason to like cut them off completely.
Okay, and my second question was about how do you balance work life and personal life? And did you have work life, personal life balance at 25?
I mean, there's no balance. In my 20s, I sacrificed a lot of my personal life so I could fly in my 30s, right? Like right? Like in my 20s, like I was adventurous, I was curious, I took a lot of risk in my 20s, because in your 20s, you still have room to bounce back. You know what I mean? So I was skipping my phone. I wouldn't pay my phone bill so I could pay for flights to go to New York and DC and LA to build relationships. And I'm like, at some point I'll get to the bills, but the relationships paid. So I was I was taking a lot of risks. So I feel like, honestly, I don't think there's any such thing as balance. I feel like if you chase it, you will fail. And I feel like you should focus on work-life integration. So, right now in your 20s, you're just going to feel like life is full and life is coming at you fast. But honestly, your 20s is for adventure. It's for journey. It's for you to travel and raise your hand and, just kind of move with the flow of it.
Thank you.
You are welcome. We have Ayla.
Hello. Thank you for having this platform. I'm kind of nervous, so I'm just like throwing down my question.
Don't be nervous.
So just to go back to the conversation of mentors, when do you know when to walk away or when to be persistent in asking or seeking a mentor? Like, you could research the person and know that they're the perfect fit for you, but ultimately, you don't want to come off as like a creep chasing someone and trying to have them be a mentor. So how do you know when like, all right, maybe I should just find someone else or figure it out on my own?
I mean, let it grow organically. Rakia, who I previously mentioned, I mean, like that was in development for, I want to say at least maybe about a year before I considered her like an official mentor, sister, friend type of thing. I met her at an event, and anytime I was in town, we'd just do coffee and we slowly build. I don't think you necessarily have to walk away. I'll give you a really quick story. So I was introduced to someone who was a potential mentor, and it took me a year and 3 months before I got a coffee with her. Right. Mm-hmm. And so but I didn't give up. Like, you have to understand that mentors, depending on their level of success, if they're not responsive, it has nothing to do with you. In most cases, a lot of them are just busy. You know what I mean? Once I got the coffee with her after a year and 3 months, now we talk every single week. You know what I mean? Like, she's like a big sis to me. So I think sometimes it's just a matter of patience and letting things unfold. And honestly, like during the time when you're waiting for a response, continue building yourself, build your portfolio, right? Like, don't sit idle.
Okay. And so I think that really just stemmed from me in the past trying to build a mentor relationship with a particular person. And I ended up, she's the one who initiated, like, we should go out and eat and go to Starbucks and talk and, tell me who you are. And that was great. I was really excited about it. But then when I got there, I figured it came off almost like I was being bullied. It was weird. And I thought to myself, like, okay, is this normal?
It's okay. It's okay. I mean, she just may not be the right fit, and that's okay. You know what I mean? And like, I think finding a mentor is like finding a pair of shoes or a therapist. There has to be a good chemistry fit. And maybe if the chemistry just wasn't there. I mean, how many times have we swiped on Tinder and then you meet the guy in person, you're like, you know what I mean? It's like the same thing. Like right now I'm talking to Asian Bae. and we're gonna meet, and we'll see. Like on the on the phone, we're good, but I don't know how it's gonna be when we're in person. So we'll see.
Oh, I'm calling you after this. No, just
Girl, he's a partner at an investment firm. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Amber and then Alexis.
For the question that I have, just because as a Black woman who has worked in both like in corporate America and you're not like an entrepreneur, have you ever, or people that you've worked with on both sides, has anyone ever been kind of startled by your directness, or like, you know, maybe like the fact that you're direct? Like I know with my job, I work in a male-dominated industry, in the automotive industry, and my VP of my marketing department, he loves me just because me and him are kind of like the same. We have the same outlook when it comes to business. I come to work to do my job. If we talk about other things, that's fine, but I'm super direct. But my manager's scared of that. My manager, like, he gets startled every time I'm like, hey, like, you know, this is what I need to do. This is what is being done, and that's it, you know? So
Yeah.
has anyone ever been startled? And if they have, how did you handle that?
100%. I worked in the wing of our office. I was the only Black girl. And so, and I stood up for myself, and I, you know, I would, if something didn't sound right, I would say something. Honestly, yes, people were afraid of me, but I also like earned people's respect because I wasn't like timid or back down. But I feel like we also made it, I don't know, like I feel like I am not, and I take this from Bozoma, who always says, bring your full self to work. You know what I mean? If you're afraid of me, that has nothing to do with me and everything to do with you.
Right.
I don't really, you know what I mean? You're a manager. You should have, you know, you're in a position for that reason. You shouldn't be afraid of me. You know what I mean? So as long as I'm not disrespecting nobody, as long as I'm, you know what I mean? As long as I'm articulating, you know, I'm not angry or, you know, whatever the case may be, like, yeah, like, I mean, that's an issue he has to fix, not yours. And last but not least, Alexis.
Okay, so I think I'm gonna shift just a little bit, not too much though. So I'm actually interested in moving to Toronto. So can you give us a little insight on what it's like to be a Black woman in the space? And so I took a solo trip actually for New Year's, for the new year this year, and I loved it. I love the city. Like, I love to be able to walk, and, you know, to me, it felt like a cleaner version of New York.
Yeah.
So it's like, I love the city vibe, and the people were, you know, pretty nice or whatever. So
why would you like to move to Toronto?
First of all, our government is,
well, yeah, the obvious, we have free healthcare, yeah. But like, do you think it's like the land of opportunity, or like what?
So I did do a little comparative analysis, and so just like my position now is making probably 3 times more just there, you know. And so I'm like, okay, as a single Black woman, I love the city vibe, just living in the city. I'm not quite ready to do the suburban life just yet. And so I'm like, you know, at 26, I do want to have that. I want to go try it out, you know, go try it all out before I decide like this is where I want to go. I'm very family oriented, and so for me it's like, okay, my family's on the East Coast, so they're not going to be super, super far, but they're, you know, I can still go out and do the things that I want to do. So kind of keeping all those pieces in mind. Like I said, after I traveled and I was there solo, I was like, okay, this feels comfortable, where I don't have to look over my shoulder every other second.
I mean, we definitely still have racism. We definitely still have similar issues to what you guys have. But I will say this, like, our government handles shit a lot different. We have free healthcare. I do feel safer here. But in terms of like, I don't know, like, it really depends on what your value system is. If you're coming over here because it pays more, and that's, you know, and that's something that's important to you, then, you know, and you're still in your 20s, so you can take the risk and you can still bounce back from it, right? So I definitely think if your intuition, your gut feeling says, this is a transition that I need to do, then do it. Nicole can probably speak on this more because she's moved a few times, you know what I mean? It's funny because the culture in Toronto, if you think of The Weeknd, Drake, Tory Lanez, Bieber, anyone else who come out of here, guess where they're living now? They're not even here. A lot of people who who don't get co-signed here unless they're co-signed first by the states. Okay. So Drake was doing music for years, but it wasn't until Wayne co-signed him that everyone was like, oh, what's up? You know, everyone was like on his, you know, everyone was cheering him on. So Toronto culture is interesting because like we're very relaxed over here too. You know what I mean? Like I don't do business over here at all. You know, I'm actually spending a lot of my time across the border. The vibe is different. We move a little bit slower. We're very relaxed. It's not the hustle and bustle that you might get in DC or LA or New York at all. It's like we're very, very chill, but I think it's because we're also very spoiled, you know?
Did they open your borders back up yet?
Not yet. We're still on, we still have to stay grounded.
Oh, okay. I forgot, I think Maria had a question. I would like tips on properly building a portfolio. With my current portfolio, I have a variety of experience, which some people like, or some may look at it like it's all over the place. I just want to know the best way to properly present my skill sets.
It depends on the opportunity. Just like with your resume, you would tailor your resume for the job, right? So you want to have like the most relevant information on your portfolio for the opportunity that you're approaching.
Okay. Is that all the questions we have? Looks like we got through them all.
This was fun.
Yeah. Good tribe. We used to do tribe meetups maybe once every 2 weeks, and then the pandemic hit and just a lot. But this was great. I love getting to get all of you guys on the chat, and now we have Pauleanna as our guest, and hopefully she stays on.
This was fun. This was really fun. Thank you so much, guys, and please keep the lines of communication open. I'll definitely be popping into the network to, you know, drop some more gems, but, you know, I'm very reachable on social media as well. So please feel free to follow up with any questions, and anything that I mentioned, I might've mentioned some templates and stuff. If you email me, just let me know that we met here.
You said templates, you said spreadsheets.
I said a few
contract,
things.
Yeah. Speaker's contract.
Yeah. So just let me know.
Okay, perfect. Well, this is great, guys. I guess I'll see you on the other side.
Awesome. All right. Later.
Yeah, bye.